In this video, I'll show you how to build a shelf to hold all your drills, batteries, and battery chargers, and you can also lock it. So let's get started. Okay, so the job part today is to use this piece of scrap wood and build a shelf to hold all my drills. So I'm going to mount this shelf on the workbench over there so that the drills hang in the shelf upside down. Okay, here's how I'm going to lay this out. So I've got an area on my workbench that's exactly 43.5 inches wide where I want to mount the shelf. So what I'm going to do is come in from the edge of the board to the center of the first tool, 3 3/4 inches. And then from the center to center on each tool is going to be 4.5 inches. So if you add up all that space all the way down, that adds up to exactly 43.5 inches. And then for each tool, I'll cut a 2-inch slot for the tool to sit in. Okay, first step, let's trim this board to 43.5. So I've already marked it. I'm going to double check my measurements. Right there, 43.5. Okay, I'm going to mount the board on a 2x4 in between the vertical risers on the workbench. So I need a 2x4 that's cut to the same width as the board. So if you notice, the saw teeth are on the left side of the line. That's what I want. All right, so let's cut it. Okay, let's put this 2x4 right in there. So it is a nice snug fit, exactly what I want. Okay, so let's mark the centers. So the first line is going to be at 3.5. And then from there, we're going to mark every 4.5 inches. So what I need to do now is mark 1 inch on either side of the red mark, and that's where the slot's going to come in. So the slot's going to come in just like that. Okay, so you can see what I've done here is that's the center line, and those are the 2 outside edges. So what I've done is marked in between the lines so that I know where the cutout's going to be. So essentially, my cutout's going to look like that, sort of. That's a bad example. I'm going to actually make it square, but the cutout's going to look like that. So I've got one there, one there, one there, and so forth down the board. Okay, so let's mark the outside edges where each hole is going to go. All right, so what I've done is put an X in between each of the marks. So I'm going to cut out this piece right here. I put an X there to make sure I don't cut this piece. I'm going to cut out what's marked with an X. And I went all the way down the board and did that same thing. What I'm trying to figure out right now is how far back to drill the hole that this is going to go into. So it needs to be within about, well, actually, let's take the battery off, because the battery's probably not going to be on there most of the time. So we've got this distance right here, which is roughly, I think that's about ½ an inch. What I'm going to do is just call it an inch. So what I'm going to do is come from the edge of this 2x4 an inch forward and put the hole. So it's going to be about like that. All right, so I'm going to make a line all the way down the length of this board so that I know how far back to drill these holes out, or drill the slots out. All right, so these are the pieces that I need to cut out. Okay, so now it's time to cut out the box areas. So I'm going to cut out the long side with the compound miter saw, but then I've got to cut across here. So I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut across this line, but the jigsaw has to get down in the wood first. So what I'm going to do is pre-drill it And I'm going to arrange the drill so that it's inside the box, just like this. All right. So now that I've done that, the jigsaw can fit down in just like that and cut right across this line. So I'm going to drill a hole on the inside corner of each one of these cutouts. Okay, I've got all the holes drilled. Now we'll use the jigsaw to go across the back side of each of these. Okay, so now it's time to cut out all these pieces. So what I've found through trial and error is that if I put about a half inch thick piece of wood against the compound miter saw's base plate, that's the exact spacing I need so that when the saw goes all the way down, it stops at the correct point and it does not saw through here. So now what I'm going to do is cut out every one of these. Okay, in case you need further proof that I'm not a professional woodworker, let me show you what I did. Last night while I was cutting out the drill slots, I cut off this piece. I just sawed right through it with a jigsaw, not paying attention to what I was doing. So I started to get another piece of wood and start over, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to build the whole project out of scrap. So I put this back on by cutting another little scrap 3/8 inch piece of plywood that extends all the way across from the back to the front underneath this piece. I chiseled out this support 2x4 and I ran this piece of plywood under the 2x4. It comes out at the back right there. You see my expert chiseling job. I glued it with some wood glue and I screwed it in place and it works great. It's just as strong as these other pieces, probably stronger really. And honestly, nobody cares what this looks like. The people that come in my garage, they couldn't care less. As long as it works, that's really all that matters. So if you're gonna build something like this, what I recommend is don't go to the hardware store and buy new wood to do it with. If you're not an experienced woodworker, you're gonna screw up just like I did. Just use scrap wood, whatever you have on hand or whatever you can find. Just the wood right here that you see me holding in my hands and sitting on the workbench is gonna be like 80 bucks or maybe $90 at Lowe's, depending on where you buy it. So wood's crazy. When I bought this 6 foot long 1x9 a year ago, I think I paid $8 for it. It's like $20 now at Lowe's. I'm not beating up Lowe's, I mean, it's just the fact, that's how much prices have increased. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do, I'm gonna put it back on the shelf. I'm gonna put a second shelf that's 6 inches above the bottom shelf. I'm gonna put an outside edge on it. Then I'm gonna use these scrap 1x9s to put partitions in between each of the drill holders, and that'll help stiffen these pieces of wood that hold up the drills. Okay, let's cut it. So we're gonna come from that end. 6 inches there, 6 inches there, line it up, and double measure 5 times, cut once, 6, 6, just over 6, close enough. Okay, so I got a piece of wood cut. That's the exact width of the shelf, or length of the shelf. It's gonna go on the back, just like that. Then we're gonna cut some walls to put right there, right there, right there, right there, all the way down, and then put another shelf on top of it with a slight lip sticking up. So you may be wondering, why didn't I make the back of it this high where I could have a back for the top shelf? I want cords to go over the top shelf. So I want the top shelf to only be, the top shelf's actually going to only come up to about right here. And then the bottom shelf will come up to about right there. There'll be a shelf right there and a slight lip sticking over so that I can throw the battery charger cables over the back of it without having the battery charger slip off. So the shelf is going to go right here. So now it's time to cut a piece for the shelf. Okay, so I got the back piece cut, and it's going to go on just like that. So when you put a drill in here, the drills are going to go in upside down, just like that. All right. So I'm going to pull this up to the drill so I can show you something. This is the biggest drill battery that I've got, and my Milwaukee drill battery. And with the battery on the drill, it's only about 3 inches high. Okay. So I'm going to go up about an inch above that just so I can have some wiggle room, and I'm going to put another shelf right along in there, and I'm going to have a 1-inch lip that sticks up above the back side of that shelf. That way I can set my battery chargers back there, or spare batteries up there, and they won't slide off the back, but the cords, the electric cable for the battery charger, can hang off the back. So I'm going to put another shelf like right there. Okay, so when I cut this next shelf, it's going to go right there. I don't want the shelf to be as long as this piece of wood is, because I'm going to actually put a wall right here, just like that. So I want the shelf to be long enough to go from the inside edge of this piece of wood to the inside edge of the outside wall on the other end. So it has to be the length of this minus 2 of these. All right, so I'm going to take the back piece and I'm going to trace it out of this other piece I've got left over. So I've got this edge lined up, I got the back lined up, so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and trace the outline of that piece. I'm not going to measure again, because every time you measure with a tape, you run the risk of getting the measurement wrong. I've got the actual piece here I can measure, and that's perfect. Now that I've got that, I know that I need to remove as much distance as this is thick for the outside wall. So what I'm going to do is position this just like that. So I've got the correct distance from the outside edge to the inside. Measure it there. Come down and make another measurement down here. It's the same width. All right. So that's my piece for the shelf. Okay, so I got the shelf piece cut right here. It's going to go on just like that. Okay, so now it's time to cut the outside piece right here. So the shelf is going to go in like this. I'm going to take this piece of wood and I'm going to cut 2 supports out of it just like that. And the supports are going to attach to the side of the shelf. So normally, if you're doing something like this, you would put a piece of wood there and then you would put another piece on top of it. And that outside would be the support for this, but I don't want to do that because I don't want my electronics to fall off the side or off the back. So on the outside pieces, I'm gonna make them stick up as high as the back. So I'm gonna cut 2 pieces out of here. So whatever electronics I put on this shelf will be boxed in. It can't go off the back or off the side. So I need 2 pieces of wood cut out of this, two wall pieces that are the same height as the back and the same width as the shelf, which are both 6 inches. So I need 2 6x6 pieces of wood cut out of here. Okay, so I got these 2 end pieces cut out. They're both 6 inches by 6 inches. So they're going to go against the back side just like that. And the shelf is going to sit inside that. So there'll be sort of a box right there so the electronics can't slide backwards or off the side. All right, so those are in good shape. I got 2 of them, 1 for each end. So I think it's time to go ahead and start assembling this. Okay, so the end piece is going to go against this board like this. So what I'm going to do is just hold the end piece in place and draw a line along the edge. So I'm going now to put my pilot holes right there for this end piece. I think I'll put about 4 of those in. I'm going to glue this also, so I think 4 holes is all I need, or 4 screws. I'll go ahead and do 5, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. Okay, so I got these 2 pieces together. What I'm going to do now that I've got the pilot holes in this part is line these up and drill pilot holes into this from the existing holes, if that makes any sense. And I'm right-handed, it's sort of hard to do this where the camera can actually make sense of what I'm doing. Let's see if I can drill it left-handed. I'm sure I can. Okay, so now I'm going to put a very thin bead of glue on there, and I use the Tight Bond glue. And if you do something like this, make sure you use wood glue, don't use Elmer's glue or some other type of glue. And you really don't need a lot of glue. A little glue goes a long way. All right, so I made sure my holes lined up, that I didn't get this turned around somehow. So now I'm going to stand this up and start putting my wood screws in. And I should have changed my bit out first. Where's my drill bit? I lost my drill bit. Oh, here it is. All right, so here's my drill bit, or my screwdriver bit. All right. Make sure it's lined up right. And you got to be careful with screws. This one I went in almost too far and it started to break the wood apart, so you got to be really careful. Now that I've got one started, what I'm going to do is swap out my bits, and I'm going to put on a bigger drill bit that matches the end of the screw so that I can drill a countersink for the screws. All right, so take out the drill bit. I'll take out the screw bit, put in a drill bit. And I'm going to drill a very slight countersink for each of the screw holes. And if you do that, you got to be really careful. It's very easy to over drill the countersink. And I'm also checking this piece of wood to make sure that I don't crack it. That's the whole reason you drill pilot holes, just to make sure you don't crack the wood apart. Go ahead and put one more in it. Actually, I think that's going to be really strong with 3, and the glue holds it really well, so I'm just going to go with 3 screws. All right, so let's do the other end. Okay, I got the shelf box piece put together, so what I'm going to do now is mount that on the base right here. I'm going to put it together upside down. Actually, let's turn it around the other way. Like that. There we go. Line up the corners. And I'm going to put some glue on each side of it. Actually, I'm going to put glue all the way around it. And you don't need much of this glue. A little glue goes a long way. This on there. Now this piece warped a little bit when I put it all together, so what I'm going to do is get one end lined up and then I'll screw the other end in. And that's a problem you find with wood. Wood flexes. and it warps. So as you screw stuff together and as the wood dries out, it tends to warp. So, but that's one of the reasons I like working with wood, because wood does flex, and you can correct problems that occur. So drill a couple of holes there. Go ahead and do a countersink. Very barely. All right. Put in the screw bit. Drop in a couple of wood screws. Double check it one last time, make sure it's right. All right, perfect. Now let's do the other end. Now I got to put a couple of screws in the back to get the back connected just right. So let's do that. Let me change bits. Let's do that. Okay, I got the base put on the shelf box. So here's what I did. I drilled some holes right there. I countersunk some holes about halfway the distance, down through the distance of the 2x4. And then I put some wood screws down through there so they stick through the 2x4 and down into the box. So I put, let's see, I put 2 there, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that ought to be plenty. So that's on. So now we're going to put the shelf in the box. All right. And the last thing I'll do is go and put some glue in the whole thing. All right, so let's set that in. We'll put the shelf in. And the shelf has to be about 1 inch from the end. Actually, let's turn this around. Okay, so I turned it around so I could put the shelf in, and then I realized I put the back on upside down. So my lines I originally marked off for the shelf are on the bottom side. So I've got to mark some new lines for the shelf, and then I can put some screw holes in there so we can hook the shelf in. All right, so the shelf is going to be 1 inch from the top. Make about 5 marks there. Let's put this in. Okay, so now let's work on this end. So this piece of scrap plywood I had is warped, so I'm going to have to force it into position, and I'm afraid of the layers coming apart. So what I'm going to do is re-drill my pilot holes a little bit better. All right, put in a countersink. put in a couple of wood screws. All right, that's good. Now, let's put some screws across the back. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to put a bead of glue right along in there, and I'm going to put a bead of glue along the bottom also to seal that up, and it ought to hold together really well. All right, so let's do that. Okay, I cut all 8 divider pieces, so here's how this is going to look. Each of these is going to go in just like that. They're going to be placed in the center of the drill support. Just like that. So I'm going to screw them from the bottom and the back side, and I'm going to put glue behind them and underneath them. And that ought to give extra strength to the support, so to make sure these don't break. All right, so let's get those put in. Okay, the shelf is complete. The separators have all been cut and put in position. They've been glued and screwed into place. The glue is mostly dry. Right now I've got it just sort of jammed in here between these two 2x4s that support the top of the workbench. The shelf weighs 38 pounds, which is a lot, but there's a lot of wood here, and it's made out of fairly heavy plywood, plus it's got that 2x4 on the bottom to stiffen the bottom of it. When I add the drills, batteries, and battery chargers, those add about another 50 pounds. So it's going to be probably 80 to 85 pounds right here. And I don't want all that weight to be just on these two 2x4s, so I'm going to cut another piece of 2x4 that's going to extend from the bottom of the shelf to the floor. I'm going to hook it onto the back of the workbench. So let's go ahead and cut it, get that put in place, and get the whole thing screwed onto the workbench. Okay, so the last touch up I'm going to do to the drill shelf before I put my drills in is to sand off the sharp corners and the rough edges. I was going to do this earlier and just forgot to. I'm going to use this cheap sander I got at Walmart. I think I paid $20 for this like 4 years ago. You can probably find the same thing at Walmart now for maybe $30. Also going to wear this COVID mask. So this sander creates very fine dust out of the sawdust, and you don't want to breathe that in. So I'm also going to use the shop vac to suck up the dust as I go. So, and I think you can buy a pack of these now at Walgreens for like $4. I keep some around just in case I'm using the sander and sanding something. All right, turn on the shop vac. Okay, that's it. So no more sharp edges. Should not get a splinter from touching it. I didn't sand down everything, like I didn't sand down that edge. I don't care about that. That's not going to hurt me. The same for the edge over here. in general, it's in really good shape. I'm probably going to come back and maybe put a coat of polyurethane on it just to seal it up really good. But that's it. Time to put the tools on. Okay, let's load it up. Battery chargers first. That's the cobalt charger for my weed eater and the pulse saw, which also I've done a video on. Cobalt charger for the drills and for the drill and the impact driver. I got a couple of Porter cable drill batteries. What I don't have enough of is outlets. And that's the fantastic Milwaukee charger. Which they should have put the cord on the back side. Anyhow, that's good. All right, let's put the drills in. Heaviest is on the outside, so my Milwaukee 1/2 inch is on the outside. That's solid as a rock. All right, there we go. That's it. After I put all the tools in the shelf, I started thinking, I've got well over $1,000 of equipment here. Especially the Milwaukee tools are really expensive. I'd really like to lock these down because when I go out of town, I go out of town a lot. I don't want someone to come in the garage and borrow something and then forget to bring it back, which does happen. So I'd really like to be able to lock these down. I could take the tools and put in my big toolbox, but it's full. And if I wanted to buy another toolbox, that's another $500. Plus, I really don't have any more room in the garage. It makes better sense just to lock this. So what I did is cut the tip off each of these supports. And if you can tell, some of them are dark because I used a Dremel to cut the tip off because I couldn't get a saw up there. I wish I had thought about doing this beforehand and I would have just cut them on the circular saw. But anyhow, the Dremel cut them off just fine. So I went and got this 1x6 4-foot board at the hardware store. So I can mount this board right there. It fits perfect. And if I put this board here, you cannot get these tools out. There's no way that you can pull any of them out. So I got a couple of hasps. That's a hasp right there, right here. This is a locking mechanism. You mount it like that. You put your hook there on that board, and then you can put a lock through it so you can lock it or take it off. So anyhow, I got 2 of those. I got a little pack of master locks, which are not hard to pick, and they're not really strong. This whole thing is more of a deterrent. Anyhow, so for the locks, the board, and the 2 hasps, they were about $20, which will bring my total cost in the project to around $30. And look, I know that's not going to stop somebody who's committed from stealing my equipment. What it will do is slow them down enough so that my camera can take a good picture. You know, a locked shelf or locked cabinet is a deterrent like a dog. Somebody is not going to go around a house that has a dog because the dog will bark. If somebody comes in and they see this is locked, they may spend a minute or 2 looking at it, but if they have a hard time getting this board off, or you know, if it slows them down too much, they're just going to go for something easier and take off. That's my whole goal, is to create a deterrent so that somebody gives up before they steal my tools. So anyhow, I'm going to put the hasps on both ends of this and put the locks on and lock it down. So first I've got to cut about 5 inches off one end of this 1x6 by 4 foot. So let me cut that and we'll get it mounted and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I got the board cut. I got my hasps put on each end of it. Here's how it works. So I got this hasp put over there, and I've intentionally made it a little bit tight so that this board doesn't have any play when I put it on. So put the lock on there, lock it up on this end, put the lock on, lock it up. it's locked, the board's on really tight. So I put the hasp on each end. I made it a little bit tight on purpose. So this board, there's no play in the board, it's on there firm. The tools aren't going anywhere. So you want to get it off, you just undo your lock, unlock your lock. I don't think undo your lock is the right word. Pull it off that end. Pull it off this end. You got your tools. Also on the locking board, when I put this piece on the board, I put at least one screw on each piece that goes all the way through. So there's a regular washer, a lock washer, and a nut on the back side. So nobody's going to be able to pull that off. And I did the same thing with the hinge here that goes through there. So I put one bolt from the outside to the inside. And the same way, there's a washer, lock washer, and nut. I also did it down here, and I did it on the other end of this board. So on every piece, there's at least one screw that goes all the way through. So nobody's going to be able to just pull this apart. They're going to have to take some time and some effort to get it apart if they do it all. Okay, before I wrap this up, I want to show you something. Almost all expensive tools have a serial number somewhere stamped on the tool. Even the batteries, like the Milwaukee battery, my Porter Cable battery has a serial number. The Cobalt batteries have a serial number somewhere right there. So it's a good idea to take a picture of the serial number for all your tools and all your batteries. Now, some of the cheaper tools, like my Porter Cable, does not have a serial number anywhere. It does, well, it used to have a label down here. I guess it rubbed off over time. There's a label here, but there's no serial number. My Cobalt tools have a serial number on the side. So take a picture of your tool. Also, here's something else I do. I always mark my tools in two different places. So I put my initials on the bottom or somewhere else, and I'll make another mark somewhere else so that I can identify it in case it's ever stolen and the police find it somewhere. So anyhow, if you want to build something like this, it's not tough. Just take your time. You can do it. I'm going to put the dimensions for all the lumber in the description of the video. So it's not hard to do. It just takes a little bit of time. My total cost on this project is about $30. And over half of that was putting the locking board on here, which I think is a good addition to it. So always lock your tools up when you're not there, because tools have a habit of walking off. Anyhow, thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.